Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Mystic Podcast, and I'm your host Rahul N. Singh. Thank you for taking out the time today to either watch or listen to this podcast episode. Before we do begin, I would like to wish you all a very happy new year, and may this year be full of prosperity, joy, wisdom, and all material success as well. The prayer here is that we do focus on our spirituality and we reach the heights of spirituality too. There are a few announcements that I'd like to make. Please give your support to the Bearded Mystic Podcast by signing up to the podcast's Patreon page for ad-free and bonus episodes and other benefits depending on the tier that you select. The details are in the show notes and video description below. You can also utilize Supercast, and you can also utilize the Apple Podcast subscriptions to get those bonus episodes. Mainly my thoughts on the Upanishads. Every Saturday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time, there is a free virtual meditation session along with discussion and Q&A for around 1 hour. Please find the details in the show notes and video description below if you are interested in meditation. Sometimes we need some personal help with our spirituality, or we have questions that we personally want to ask. So as a friend, I can help you through a one-to-one meeting via Zoom. You can find the details in the show notes and video description below. Please do like, comment and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast streaming app, please rate and review the podcast and do follow or subscribe to get future episodes. Let's do a recap of the last episode. We discussed the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, specifically verses 33 to 39. And in that episode, we understood that Arjuna simply cannot see the practicality of such methods and teachings. He finds that his mind is far too restless. Arjuna provides his experience on how the mind is impossible to control because of its mere strength. Sri Krishna appreciates what Arjuna says and his questions too, but also reminds him of his own strengths and tells him he must do constant practice and vairagya. Sri Krishna makes a concession by saying yoga can be difficult, but in the end, we have to discipline the mind and remove avidya by strengthening the intellect with viveka, discernment of the real and the unreal. Arjuna then asks a further series of questions that what happens if one tries their best with these practices but doesn't reach perfection? What is their next birth like? Arjuna starts entering a bit of a defeatist attitude and says he will lose both Brahman and worldly success, or even heavenly success, if he doesn't complete his yoga. Arjuna surrenders to Sri Krishna and knows that only he can remove all the doubts that he has. He puts his complete trust in Sri Krishna as he feels defeated by his own doubts. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 6 verses 40 to 47. This will be the final episode for chapter 6. So next week we'll begin chapter 7. Now let's start with verse 40. Sri Bhagavan said, "My dear Arjuna, any person who performs actions that are beneficial to their self and all beings is never degraded, not in this life or the next." Let's look at this verse as a whole altogether. First of all, he approaches him with "my dear friend." Now, what we can say is that the highest relationship between a guru and disciple is friendship. Yes, one can be a disciple and worship the guru and listen to the guru's sermons and practice the teachings accordingly. But when one enters a deep friendship with the guru, like Rumi and Shams, then our spiritual journey takes a new leaf. Here, Sri Krishna is doing the same thing with Arjuna. He's telling him, you're my dear friend. And by doing this, he's establishing that whatever he's teaching Arjuna is the highest truth. Because right now, he's seeing him as a friend. And that's the mercy and the grace of the Guru. If any of us have been in contact with the Guru, we know that that is a beautiful relationship to have, and when it turns into a friendship, it's even more spectacular. I really value what Sri Krishna has already said here. He also talks about how any person who performs the actions that are beneficial to their own self, but also beneficial to others, they can never be degraded. They can never be degraded to a worse life or a bad life. Now, what will happen and what we need to understand is that these actions that are beneficial, they have to be done with the mind that is stable in the truth, stable in vivek, in discernment of the real and the unreal. But also, it needs to think of others too. Like, the biggest thing that we have to get from this is that it's not just about what's beneficial for ourselves. Remember, there's only one action that is ultimately beneficial for us, which is to understand who we really are, understand what this Atma is, understand what Brahman is. That's the ultimate goal for us. That's the only thing beneficial to the self. Now, the other actions that are beneficial to other beings, that's any action which is based in kindness, based in togetherness, in oneness, in compassion, in love, with peace. Those are the type of actions which are valuable. Those actions which benefit everybody as much as possible, or most people as possible. So having that in the mind is very important. You remember that these actions have to benefit not just ourselves, but others too. He makes it clear that they will never be degraded. You will never have to face loss. You will never have to face suffering. And he makes it very clear that it's not just in this life, but also in the next life or the next lives, there will not be any suffering. This is very important for us to understand, because whenever we are doing these actions, whether it's of karma yoga or whether it's bhakti yoga or raja yoga or meditation or even jnana yoga, remember that all the things that we do, as long as we are practicing it, we are being true beacons of practitioners. And therefore, if we are practicing it, then ultimately we know that it's not just going to benefit us, but the benefit is with others too. Our whole life becomes a great example on being, devoted to the truth and being devoted to upholding the truth, and more so, truthful living. The context of the whole verse here is that Sri Krishna begins his answers to Arjuna's questions and says that any action that benefits one and all will never be degraded in this life or the next. We have a lot to go through in this episode, so we're going to be a bit quicker than usual. Verse 41, yogis who have not finished perfecting the yoga take their next birth on Svargalok, the beautiful realm of the Devas. There they live amid radiance and splendor for many delightful years. In their next life, they return to earth, where they take birth in a beneficial family. Let's look at the first part of the verse. Yogis who have not finished perfecting their yoga take their next birth on Svargalok, the beautiful realm of the Devas. Now, Arjuna was worried about what happens to the yogi who attempts this yogic practice of karma yoga, but doesn't completely remove avidya or ignorance to understand who they really are, to understand our true nature. How do we actually assimilate that teaching that we are Brahman, that there is only Brahman? How do we make it embedded within us that there is only pure awareness? There is only formless awareness. This is not very easy for everybody. It's a valid question that Arjuna has asked. What Sri Krishna gives is a consolation here. It's not a win-win, but it's a little bit of a victory. He says that even if they don't perfect it, they will still go to the realms of the Devas. That's Svargaloka. There one becomes a Deva and one enjoys all the pleasures of the celestial realm. You can find the Puranas, they go into what that is, but for the sake of our understanding, because we are more non-dualist and we are here for the more deeper aspects, then we don't need to go heavy into what happens in Svargaloka. But all you can sense is it's like heaven, but on another level. So one can call it heaven if one wants to. Now, this Svargaloka is also one of joy and happiness. So there is a happiness you feel, but it's associated with the loka that you're in the realm that you're in. Therefore, if something is identified to that, it's not going to be everlasting, which is why in the next part of the verse, Sri Krishna says, There they live amid radiance and splendor for many delightful years. In their next life, they return to earth, where they take birth in a beneficial family. First of all, we understand that this realm is full of radiance and splendor. One is absolutely satisfied when they're in this realm. There's nothing more they want, nothing more they need. There's so much to enjoy here in that loka. Now, they spend a lot of time in this loka. They spend many years here. Eventually, they have to return to the earth, as Sri Krishna says. Now, why do they have to return only to the earth? That is because it's only on this earth that you can get Jivan Mukti. In non-duality, the ultimate state is to be a Jivan Mukta, is to be someone who is liberated whilst living. There's no point for asking for liberation or moksha or mukti after you die. There's no guarantee of such a thing. But by being a Jivan Mukta, by understanding that Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Remember, not just that this body and mind is Brahman. No, there is only Brahman. Therefore, Aham Brahmasmi. So, once we've established that in our life, then we will get mukti. So, we come back to earth because this is the only loka, this is the only realm where we can attain Jivan Mukti, or attain the understanding that we are formless awareness. That's okay, but Sri Krishna gives another beautiful blessing here. He says, but coming back to earth will not just be to any family. It's someone that will be beneficial. Beneficial for what? For spiritual attainment. So even the family that you'll be born in, say if you do not get to Jivan Mukti in this life, at least after you've enjoyed the merits and the joys of heaven, once that's all been exhausted, then you'll come back to the earth. But in this earth, you will be born in a family which is already well suited for Jivan Mukti. You will find that they are genuinely quite spiritual, people that are inquirers into the truth, traders of the truth, lovers of the truth. That's the type of family you're going to be in. For example, right now, you may be listening to this, but you may be thinking, well, my family wasn't beneficial in many ways. Actually, it could have been the other way. They're not as connected to the truth, or they do not love the truth as I do. But sometimes our karma brings us to people who can actually benefit us. So don't just limit it to a family. It can also be your close friends, or nowadays some people that you may come across on social media, a community there. So you will be part of a community that will really help you attain Jivan Mukti. And I will let you know here that in this podcast community, our aim is for Jivan Mukti, is to be liberated whilst alive. There's no need to pretend or delay such a thing. We have to have that intense desire to be liberated whilst alive. The context of the whole verse here is that Sri Krishna says, even if you don't complete your yoga, you will go to Svargaloka, enjoy your time with the Devas, you'll have absolute delight in that time, you'll really enjoy it, you'll be completely satisfied, but you will have to come back on the earth, take birth in a family that will be beneficial for your spiritual growth, who will be conducive to having the right elements required for you to really excel spiritually. Verse 42, or they take their next birth in the family of yoga practitioners. Such an enlightened birth is rare and very difficult to achieve. So let's look at this verse as a whole. The favored birth will be in a family that is already yoga practitioners. Remember, I just mentioned earlier how you may come across a community but not be born in a family that is connected or are lovers of truth. Now here, what Sri Krishna is saying is that some people maybe even bypass Svargaloka and will actually be born in a house of yogic practitioners. That will be an amazing thing. Or even, it may be that you don't have parents that are completely spiritual, or they may not be as lovers towards the truth as you are. It may be that you have a family or parents that may not love the truth as much as you do. It's possible. Now, if that's the case and you're born in that, they will probably already be part of a community where truth is accessible, and with a sincere heart, that truth can be revealed or unveiled to you. That's one way to understand that. The atmosphere at home will just be generally one of spirituality. So you'll have people, you'll be in a house where there are songs that are singing about the deeper spiritual truths or about God. You may have a family that meditates very often, that connects with the truth, that reads spiritual books or scriptures, or they watch spiritual videos on YouTube or on any video platform. And same thing with listening, they'll be listening to spiritual podcasts or watching spiritual TikTok videos and all sorts. So you'll find that they are naturally inclined to that, and they already are in search for God or for some truth. There is also a warning here that Sri Krishna gives, a warning or maybe something to make us alert of, that it's not easy to find a family or parents or a house that has this level of intense yogic practitioners. It may take many years before a jiva finds a house that is ready for its birth. For a child to be available, for a jiva to be available, they will have to find the right set of parents, which will have obviously logistical difficulties and challenges. As Sri Krishna says, such an enlightened birth is rare and very difficult to achieve. Don't take this as, oh, it's a great opportunity, oh, it's alright if I don't get Jivan Mukti now. No, we must try to get Jivan Mukti in this life. It has to be our number one priority. The essence really of this verse is, don't rely on your next birth. Don't rely too much on that in your next birth everything will be favoured for you to get Jivan Mukti. You will still face logistical challenges. Now, what we have to understand is, we'll be born in a family of spiritual practitioners. That's rare and difficult to get anyway, but more so, they will be conducive towards spiritual freedom, to spiritual fearlessness, and that will be the aim. Verse 43, O Arjuna, in either of those enlightened or beneficial family environments, the yogi eventually resumes the pursuit of self-perfection through yoga at the same level of achievement they attained in their previous life. So we'll look at this verse as a whole. We automatically see that it is a favourable birth, obviously. What they will find for the devotee is, for that yogi, they'll be picking up where they left off. Whatever they achieved in the last life, they will then follow in this life. One wouldn't go 2 steps back or 1 step back. One will still be at the same place. Only in such an enlightened family environment can the yogi resume the practice as if they left it yesterday or last night. This means ultimately the essence of this is that no effort is lost. Everything that you've done will find its benefits later too. Don't think that, oh, I didn't achieve Jivan Mukti in this life, I didn't get liberation in this life, so in the next one I'll be born in a family that is not conducive, or I will be born in a place where nobody's spiritual. No, such a birth, because it's so rare, it will have the right environment. It's very important that even if you are not spiritual, for example, if you're young, say eventually you're going to get married and you're going to enter into a relationship or a marriage, and you may adopt kids or you may conceive children, what I would suggest here is that start building up your spiritual practice. Yes, go for the material goals. I'm not saying do not have that, but also have the spiritual goals in mind and in practice, in progress, because right now it's very important that we do this, so that the Jeeves that are waiting to be born in such a house will find their way with you. It's very important to find someone that is equally as spiritual as you are, or relatively close. If one is able to do this, one can really benefit from having a very fruitful relationship. Not only will your relationship or marriage be really happy in general, but you will have children that are already ready for spirituality. Now, some people may say, well, we've been connected with a place which speaks of the truth, which talks about the truth, but our kids aren't interested. You have to then inquire into yourself that, do you love the truth? And is that love for truth being presented to the children properly? For example, are you just liking the community that you're in rather than the actual truth itself, the teachings, the spirituality? Like, those are the few things we have to think about. It's very easy for us to say, well, we want our children to be part of the same spiritual community, be part of the same religion, want the truth as much as we do, or want the truth just like we've been given the truth. What I think is more important is that you become embodiments of the truth, and therefore they will naturally be inclined because they see you are not a hypocrite. The number one issue that young people ask me about spirituality is, why is everyone a hypocrite? Why are people not practicing what they're preaching? Not even what they're preaching, but even what they're listening to. If you're going somewhere to a spiritual place and you're not imbibing the messages, if you're not embodying the messages, you can't expect your kids to do the same. You can't expect your kids to be spiritually inclined. Very rare will a child surpass their parents. Most likely they will stay stuck in the same place. It's very important that, more than anything, that if you have children and they're young and they're observing you, it's really important that you show them that you are at least attempting to be spiritual, attempting to be spiritually inclined, and trying to imbibe the truthful teachings. Have you attained that level of stability in the mind where one is not wavered in any way? Have we allowed the mind to come to a peaceful and calm place? Or do we get irritated at the most minute thing? Those are the things we have to think about. If you really want to have children who are connected to the truth, we have to make sure we have the right environment at home. The context of this whole verse is that Sri Krishna is guiding us that practicing this yoga does bring its benefits in the current life that we're in, especially also from the previous lives that we've been in. We have to understand that no effort is wasted, and we pick up where we left off in terms of spiritual practice and progress. Verse 44, at a certain point, upon hearing the Vedic sound vibrations that lead to Brahman realization, the yogi is reawakened to the intense desire for self-realization that was cultivated in their previous life. Once reawakened, they are compelled to continue their journey of yogic realization. The first part of the verse is, at a certain point, upon hearing the Vedic sound vibrations that lead to Brahman realization. These Vedic sound vibrations is the Anhad Shabad or the Anhad Nad. This is like the blissful sound of Om that is there in the background always. Those of us that have attained a certain spiritual development and progress, we can experience that eternal sound of Om in the background. Some people call it the sound of silence, some people call it different things, but really it's just the subtlest sound that is there within a quiet mind. One doesn't go to a complete silence, there is this slight humming in the back, and this slight humming actually brings you to a trance. And when you're in that trance, you are fixated. Then your mind doesn't waver in any way. When that happens, that's when you know you're attached to the Anhad Nad or the Anhad Shabad. That sound is actually, because you're in that trance state or you're in that focus, you can understand that that is pure awareness itself. That is formless awareness. Automatically, it turns our attention to Brahman. It automatically makes us being aware of being aware. It's amazing. And this sound goes beyond vibrations and enters into formlessness. Although we hear these vibrations, it takes us to formlessness, to this place where there is nothing for us to grasp, rather we are grasped by it. The second part of the verse is, the yogi is reawakened to the intense desire of self-realization that was cultivated in their previous life. Upon hearing this sound, these Vedic sound vibrations, the yogi reawakens their intense desire for self-realization. It's also very important that we listen to these mantras as we're growing up. In the household that you're in, it's important to sometimes play for at least 30 minutes some Vedic mantras, some very special words, whether that's Gurbani, whether that's Qawwalis of the Sufi tradition, whether it's Artis, the Hanuman Chalisa. We have to be listening to these things to help us grow spiritually, and you never know what sound can do this for us. The journey continues into awakening, the journey that was started in the previous life. All that we're doing really is turning on the ignition and starting our spiritual journey as it was. Then Sri Krishna says, once reawakened, they are compelled to continue their journey of yogic realization. Once this intense desire awakens, the yogi will be steadfast on this path. This will be the only thing they want to achieve. Nothing is more important than this yogic realization itself. That's what they ultimately want. And liberation will be the only goal for such a person. They may be a householder or a monk, but spirituality will be their everything. They will, with all their might, with all their passion, continue their journey of yogic realization, no matter what will be the end result. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna says the yogi will be awakened by the Vedic sounds like Om, and that will reawaken their journey towards realization. From their burning desire to be awakened to achieve Jivan Mukti will be there, and this is a goal that is really set in stone. It's not something that is washed away in any way or eroded away in any way. Verse 45, eventually by persevering in their yogic practice with their manas fully controlled and all material tendencies removed, the process of self-realization that they have pursued over many lifetimes finally leads the yogi to attain the Param Gati, the ultimate destination. Let's look at the first part of the verse. Eventually, by persevering in their yogic practice with their manas fully controlled and all material tendencies removed. First of all, they will continue this yogic practice. They will persevere even when everything is working against them. Whether all the forces of nature is working against such a yogi, they will not give up their yogic practice. They will be determined. They will be completely strong and focused and attentive towards this path. The mind will be fully controlled as the power of the intellect is awakened through viveka, through the discernment of the real. Once we understand that the formless awareness that is within us is eternal, it's stable, it's the absolute real because it doesn't change in any way, it's always there, always here. They understand from this point that the mind will be controlled. We will be able to find that we can observe the thought as it appears rather than just letting thoughts play out. We will be able to even stop a thought in its track because we will be addressing our material tendencies too, where the mind will try to, our desires may arise, our senses may start playing up and start desiring things, and we may find that greed is appearing, or lust is appearing, or pleasure is appearing, or attachment is appearing, anything like that, or even personal identity starting to appear again. When we are completely in contact with that formless awareness and understand that that is what we are, then our mind will be fully controlled. It will not even move slightly towards another direction. The yogi will continue to act, but without a single thought towards success or failure. Yeah, that's their level of steadiness of the mind. And that is effortlessly practicing vairagya. They're giving every action up. They're giving every fruit of the action up, whatever the results are, positive or negative. Then all material tendencies, all vasanas gone from the previous lives that were impediments to the journey. Sometimes we get attracted towards things materially and it doesn't make sense to us. We're like, why are we attached to that? Why am I chasing after so much money when I should be completely satisfied now? Why am I harming other people and their chances of success in my workplace? Why am I cheating in my exams? All these tendencies come up because they're played a part in our previous lives. When the mind is fully controlled, we are able to actually remove those tendencies. We can uproot them so they never appear again in our lives. Again, just re-emphasizing that the tendency towards greed, attachments, anger, jealousy and enmity and personal identity will dissolve away when we completely persevere in this yogic practice. Then in the second part of the verse, Sri Krishna says that the process of self-realization that they have pursued over many lifetimes finally leads the yogi to attain the paramgati, the ultimate destination. So by trusting this process, they keep going forward. They never give up. Many lifetimes have led them to hear these sacred verses of the Gita. Many lifetimes we've been hearing such messages. Maybe not directly the Gita, but messages that are there in the Gita, that's also there in other scriptures. Many lifetimes have also led us to practice these yogic practices mentioned in the Gita and Vedanta overall. Many lifetimes have also led the yogi to be in contact with a guru that knows the paramgati, that knows the ultimate destination, that knows the ultimate truth, that brings us directly in contact with this formless awareness. And how does the person do that? That guru tells them that everything that you see, perceive through your senses, even your senses themselves, are they subject to change? If they change or modify in any way, remove them away, because they are objects in your awareness. Your awareness is prior to all of these things. Therefore, start associating yourself with this formless awareness and not the personal identity of the body and mind. We then also understand that many lifetimes have led the yogi towards liberation, towards Jivan Mukti. Everything has conspired together to make that happen. Remember that this is the final destination, the ultimate destination, the highest destination one can achieve. If there's one thing to achieve in life, it is this: Jivan Mukti, liberated while you're alive, being completely fearless and being completely associated with one's true identity, which is this formless awareness, which is Nirguna Brahman. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna talks about how one should keep going as they work on their spiritual goal of enlightenment. Their mind will be controlled and material tendencies removed while they attain liberation. This is not an overnight success, but one over many lifetimes. Although it may appear that it is overnight success, but trust me, spirituality has a much longer time frame than one can understand. Verse 46. A perfected yogi is greater than those who only perform tapasya. They are more advanced than those who only pursue jnana. The perfected yogi also goes beyond those who perform the Vedic rituals only for material gain. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, strive to be a perfected yogi. Let's look at the first part of the verse. A perfected yogi is greater than those who only perform tapasya. For example, we know many people in this world perform tapasya. Tapasya is spiritual actions that burn away one's ailments or impediments to spiritual enlightenment. Many fast and avoid food. Many stay silent and avoid words. Many meditate in a cave and avoid people and remain in solitude. But a perfected yogi can live in this world and yet practice vairagya. They can practice not being touched by any of the actions that they do. A perfected yogi surrenders all fruits of their actions to the Lord, and they want nothing in return. Nothing can appeal to them anymore. Someone may perform tapasya, but the yogi that wants enlightenment, the yogi that wants to achieve happiness, eternal happiness, bliss itself, those that want liberation whilst alive, Jivan Mukti, they are greater than anyone that performs any type of tapasya. That's not saying that tapasya does not have its merits, but what we're saying here is, if you had to see what was greater, then it's seeking the true self, it's seeking Brahman. Then the second part of the verse is, they are more advanced than those who only pursue jnana. So, the yogi is not one that just studies the scripture, which is what Sri Krishna is saying. They are much more than that. They endeavor to have much more than just studying the scriptures. The yogi seeks jnana, but also lives in the jnana as the jnana. Everything they see is this ultimate wisdom, this ultimate realization, which is there is only Brahman, there is only formless awareness. The yogi therefore becomes Brahman itself, the embodiment of the jnana. The yogi has absolute devotion towards the absolute truth and surrenders all actions to the one that is aware of their own awareness. In this awareness, they are focused and attentive on one point alone, which is Brahman. That's it. Brahman is everything. Brahman is all. There is nothing more for that yogi. And that's why they are higher, because someone who just reads but does not lead themselves into insight or practice, what good is in reading and remembering? Yes, you can have a good memory and remember shlokas from all the Upanishads or the Gita or the Ashtavakra Gita or any other scripture. Good, a parrot can do the same, but a yogi is much more. Because they unite with the truth, they become one with the truth. What's more important is that when we study the scriptures, we start looking at how we can embody those very teachings. Then the next part is, the perfected yogi also goes beyond those who perform the Vedic rituals only for material gain. The yogi goes beyond the ritualistic portions of the Vedas, and since they practice vairagya, they go beyond both material gain and loss. They're not just doing Vedic rituals for material gain, that, if I do this puja, or if I do this prayer, if I do this ritual, then I will have happiness in my home. I will have a baby born in my home. I will have a new home or a new car or more wealth, or I will have more land. All these selfish things are not what the yogi does. They go beyond such practices. There's Vedic rituals for those things, but the yogi goes beyond that because they want to go for the spiritual element, nothing more, nothing less. And then the next part is, therefore Arjuna, in all circumstances strive to be a perfected yogi. So Arjuna has been given guidance here so far, and again to bring Arjuna to a place where he has to understand what is next, he needs to do the karma yoga, as it's the easiest and one that strives to achieve the best alone. So through action we can attain perfection. Through action we can become complete in the yogic wisdom. Whatever comes our way, whatever struggles come our way, whatever great things come our way and become distractions, one should continuously try to be a perfected yogi. I would even say the fact that if one is listening to these words, it means that they have the ability to be a perfected yogi. One should understand that they are right now in the right circumstance in order to understand that they are formless awareness. We have to understand that Karma Yoga really helps because it both utilizes the Gyan aspect, which is the wisdom, but also because we want to give up the results of our actions, we can easily associate it with Bhakti Yoga, which is to surrender everything to the Lord, to God itself. Or for some of us, we can utilize meditation to control the mind, control our thoughts, therefore get the manas to a place where it's not chanchal, where it's not going here and there, where it's not wavering, where it's not jumping around, but it's still and steady. And really the ultimate point here is that a perfected yogi is that which is that person whose mind has become completely stabilized in the truth, and therefore we have to try to achieve this regardless of whatever is going on in our lives. We cannot accept any excuse for not practicing these teachings. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna guides on why union with awareness, dropping all notions of loss and gain, one becomes a perfected yogi, and Arjuna should strive only for the highest and nothing less than that. Let's go to the final verse of today's episode, verse 47. And of all yogis, those who are completely dedicated to me, who have joined their Atma with me in a deep and loving relationship, in the mood of Bhakti Yoga, divine loving service, those yogis are the most connected to me. Let's look at this verse as a whole. This again is a very important verse to understand. One again that can be easily misunderstood, but we're going to look at this through the correct method, which is to understand what Sri Krishna has been trying to portray since chapter 2. Again, let's re-establish that Sri Krishna, whenever he says me, he's referring to Nirguna Brahman. Now why is that? Because that has no attribute, therefore it does not change in any way. It's all pervading formless awareness. So awareness never changes, hence it's better to understand that Sri Krishna is talking from that place rather than someone that has a body and mind. If we start seeing Krishna as someone who has a body and mind that is separate to us, then we've misunderstood the whole teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, because in chapter 2 we are guided that that which is real is changeless, and Sri Krishna is real, hence he is changeless, but the changeless is that which has no form and which is complete awareness, so formless awareness. When we surrender all the fruits of our actions to Brahman, when we think of Brahman in every action that we do, with every thought our mind creates, through its own movements, through its own tendencies, may they all be dedicated to Brahman alone. Everything we do, everything we think, everything we feel, everything we intend to do, can all be dedicated to Brahman, can all be dedicated to the true self that is residing within Sri Krishna's body and mind at the time that he was saying this to Arjuna. Remember, you have joined and you connected your mind with Nirguna Brahman. We must always join our mind continuously with Brahman, with formless awareness. Nothing should compromise that connection. Nothing should invalidate that connection. The easiest way to do this is to feel incredible love that is so deep that awareness becomes our beloved. We can see formless awareness as our beloved. We can feel that love and that intense desire to really connect and unite with it. We have to try to feel that deep love for that truth, for that formless awareness. Then in the ecstasy of being in love with the beloved formless awareness, which we automatically are in a mood of intense devotion, Bhakti Yoga. We are continuously practicing Bhakti Yoga naturally, because everything we are doing, thinking, feeling, anything is being dedicated to this one. We can connect with this one always. We are in constant divine loving service towards Brahman, which is our true self, our true nature. Any action we do for the world that benefits many is service towards Brahman, because we are seeing Brahman in everything. Therefore, we want everyone to get the most amount of success and happiness from life. That becomes really important for us. And when we do this, we are the most connected to Nirguna Brahman, to formless awareness. Ultimately, this is the main goal of spirituality. So really have that connection with the truth. Build that connection, maintain that connection, and make that connection your everything. And once it is your everything, then you'll be in eternal bliss all the time. You will be, in the truest way, Sat Chit Ananda, in that state. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna guides us on how to have this ecstatic and loving devotion towards Nirguna Brahman, and to connect our formless awareness deeply within our own self and remain in this loving relationship forever. So that is the end of this episode. Please do share this podcast with your friends and family who may enjoy this content. Follow me on social media to keep getting updates. Join the Bearded Mystic podcast WhatsApp community group to continue the podcast discussion. Details in the show notes and video description below. If you would like to support the Bearded Mystic podcast, you can sign up to the podcast Patreon page. Details in the show notes and video description below. Please rate and review the podcast on our website, www.thebeardedmysticpodcast.com. Please do like and comment on this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and please subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast streaming app. Thank you very much for listening, and once again wishing you all a very happy new year. Soham, Soham, I am that, Om Shanti, 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 Om Peace, Peace, Peace. Namaste.